Hello, I'm Professor Toybox. I've got the Incredible Hulk with me, and we'd like to welcome you back to my Agrabah Palace Dungeon Toy Box, which is based on alpha footage of the Disney Infinity 4.0 Kingdoms project. Today I'm going to show you how to build the spiked floor trap. Here's what this floor trap looked like in the 4.0 alpha footage. It's a simple trap, it's easy to build, and we have all the pieces we need to build it in the 3.0 toy box. You'll find the spiked floor in the platforming toys drawer. And we'll go ahead and I'll show you how to place these. I was thinking about placing them ahead of time, but I'll do that just so you can see where to place them. So I'm going to line the first one up over here on this trap with this wall corner and slide it out to the edge of the terrain seam there. And then we're going to drop these in a square pattern, just like this. So that's it for the first floor trap, and the button that triggers it will be up here on this wall. And again, we're in the main chamber. The next trap is going to be over here and centered right underneath the middle of this ledge hang. And that would be just like this. And we're just going to run a string of them as far as we can. So that'll work. And I think, actually, I think I only went that far in the original. You don't really need to go too much further than that. So that's it for the second spiked floor trap, and that's controlled by a button that's up here. And again, the buttons, I've only placed those out of the Creativity Toys drawer. I have not actually hooked them up to anything yet. The third spiked trap goes over here in front of the entrance up to Jafar's tower, and I'm lining it up with the corner of this castle piece here, and we just need two of them, and they're going to be controlled by a button on the opposite side of the room up here. And the last spiked floor trap goes in the other large chamber, which is through here and over in front of this round tower. And there's room enough for three of those here. And those will be controlled by a button up here on the corner near the Wampa pit. And so 4 spiked floor traps. That's what I've got in here, and they all work the exact same way. Now, before I hook these up, there's a couple of things I want to point out about the spiked floors. First of all, the default behavior of the spiked floor is to trigger immediately when a player steps on it, and you can change that behavior in the properties for the spiked triggering platform by setting a delay, and this is the amount of time in seconds. So when the player steps on this, by default, those spikes will come up immediately because there's no delay. And so normally when you place these, you'd probably be tempted to give the player a second or two, a little bit of time to get off of it before it triggers. Unfortunately, this delay will also apply to any logic connection that's used to trigger the trap. And so I recommend not using the delay. And this means that as a player, you want to avoid these spikes. You want to go around them, jump over them, but don't walk on them because they'll trigger immediately. Second, enemies can walk over the spiked floor without triggering it, unless you put the enemy and the spiked floor on different teams. This might be an oversight on the part of the Disney Infinity developers, but I think it's actually good because that means the enemy AI will ignore the spiked floor until it's too late. So building the spiked floor trap is pretty easy. Once you place the button and the spiked floor, you just need one logic connection, and you come to the button or whatever Creativity toy you want to use to trigger that, and you do a new logic connection in the case of the button when pressed, and you come over to the spiked floor and you activate the spikes. There's only one logic connection you can make with that. And that means that when you come out here and push the button, it triggers immediately, just like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and hook up all of these logic connections. This button here has got to hook up that same way to all 8 of these platforms. This button needs to hook up to all of those platforms. This button needs to hook up to those 2, and the other button over here in this chamber hooks up to those 3. So I'm going to do that offline, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, they're all hooked up, and when we push the button, all of the spikes go up. So that was easy peasy. Nothing could be simpler to build. But when we add an enemy to test with, now we're going to run into some problems. So let's go ahead and drop a few of these guards out here. And we'll see what happens. So, first thing you'll notice, there they go. Okay, so now they've detected me. You can tell by the little jump. Normally they do that quicker. So that was kind of a surprise that it took them so long. But they've detected me, and as I pointed out in the playthrough video back in episode 18, this causes the pathfinding AI to kick in. And because it can't find a way to reach me, the enemy is now essentially stuck. Okay, Hulk, settle down. And because the guards can't find a way to reach me, they're not going to move again as long as they detect me. And that's a problem, and not only for the spiked floor trap, but for all of the traps that we're going to build. So we need to be able to get them moving. And I did a lot of experimentation with this and figured it out that it's basically when we disappear from their detection range. So if we come into the editor, for example, or spark mode, now they're wandering around because I'm not in the toy box now. And so to get them to detect me, or to not detect me, we need to use an invisibility device. And so I'm going to come out over here into this little room, and I'll show you how to build the little well puzzle. So under the gameplay toys drawer, we have this sidekick well door, and I'm going to drop this right on the corner of this terrain block, just like that. And I'm seeing there's a few other decorations that I forgot to put in when I built this. So let me just go ahead and put those in real quick. So under building sets group 6, this little planking, and actually I don't think it was the planking, I think it was this platform that I used. And so I put this up here, and then on either side of that, down in the blocks drawer, I put a couple of columns. So one there and one there, and that just kind of frames in where those invisibility devices will appear. And then in the plants drawer, in each of these corners, I stuck a couple of pots, and I've already put down my Agrabah power disc so that I have these marketplace pots available, and I'll set that to be my theme. Come out of spark mode, and we'll drop another one on the opposite side of the room. We'll turn this one the opposite way like that. Okay, so there we go. That's our little room where we get those devices. And oops, I forgot one creativity. I tried to put these all down ahead of time, but I forgot a couple of them. We need the object generators. And we're going to use 2 of these, and I'm going to hook them up to those locators. So I'll drop them back out over here. And for each of these, we do a new locator connection. And I'll connect them up to one of the locators. So that one to that locator, and this one to the other locator. And all the default properties for those are fine. And on the sidekick well door under the properties, I do not want to remove Genie, so that will stay. This disabled door after use, this should be on because I only want to do this once, but since I'm probably going to test this a few times, I'll turn this off temporarily. Detection level at 1, normal response chance at 10, explosive response chance at 0. And then new logic connection When the normal response is returned, come over to each of these object generators, and under the tools, you'll find the invisibility device, and that's what we want to see. And we'll do the same thing with the other object generator. And I put down 2 in case there are 2 players. This way each of them gets an invisibility device, because if those enemies detect either player, they'll freeze like they did. And so now we have an invisibility device handy. So we can come out here and come over here, Genie. We'll toss you in. I like how the Hulk tosses them in pretty forcefully. Then we can come in over here and pick up one of those devices. It's kind of funny I'm using the Hulk today because stealth is such a primary tactic for him. So now you'll see the enemies are frozen, but if we use the invisibility device, now they no longer detect me. And that guy actually walked over the platform. I could have used the spikes on him if I had been standing over there. And what's interesting is they have not detected Genie. Sometimes they'll detect the sidekick and then freeze just like that. But what you can do is pick up the sidekick, and then they can't detect him either. Ah! There we go, got him. Okay. So now we're invisible, and the guards are walking around, and you'll note that one guard over there was kind of stuck. But the guards have walked over there, and so you'll see another downside here, another problem with the trap-based gameplay. And that is waiting for an enemy to wander over here where we can get them. And of course that guy's walking right across those spikes and we're nowhere near that button. And by the time we get there, he probably won't be there. But to help with that, I came up with the idea of using bait. And so there's a couple of toys from the 2.0 games, Assault on Asgard and Stitch's Tropical Rescue, that we can use to help reduce the wait time by luring the enemies over here. And if we go left from that sidekick well, one of them is this duckling decoy, and I'm using this one because I just thought it was hilarious to use this particular one. It seemed like something silly that the Genie would use, and so I'm going to use that one. There's another one from Assault on Asgard, and I think it's an Asgard townsperson or something like that, hologram that'll show up. Let's see. I want to come over here to the replayer. We're going to use the replayer to put it down. So under the properties, and I dropped this earlier, I hadn't connected it, and I also put down a Asgardian townsperson door. And we'll go ahead and set the properties for that while we're here. And again, I don't want to remove the townsperson. This should be disabled, but since I'll have to test this a few times, I'll leave that off. Detection level 1, normal response chance 10, explosive response chance 0. And then come out of the Spark mode and out of the editor. And then we'll walk over here on top of the replayer to open the menu in the lower right. Press B to record, step off so I can get back into the editor. And then I'm going to put this decoy right down here in the middle of this square. It doesn't really matter, I guess, which way he's facing. He's already going and attacking it. And we'll step on the replayer and push B to stop recording and A to clear. And again, only push A once or you might corrupt that replayer. And he's wondering, where'd that duck go? Was here just a second ago. Okay, so the replayer's set to drop that now. So all you have to do is come into the townsperson door and do a new logic connection. When the normal response is returned and Genie comes flying out of there, come over to the replayer and do a playback. And that will put the duck decoy out there, so the guards will get suckered in. And so let's go ahead and put that decoy back by picking up Genie and tossing him in that door. And they're detecting me right now, but as soon as they detect that, they'll go and attack that. And now we use the spikes, and that took care of them. So that's it for the spiked floor trap. It's an easy trap to build, but I've posted some logic diagrams on my blog for it anyway, even though you probably won't need them. And if you've never checked out my blog, I encourage you to take a look. My posts include floor plans and logic diagrams for my toy boxes, and my Saturday Steal posts will point you to some good deals on Amazon US for various Disney Infinity figures and playsets that might help you complete your collection. That's all for me today. See you next time.